Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the stage. I'm Valentina, your MC here on the stage at CMX Spark. If it's your first time joining me, welcome. Hopefully you have been attending some other sessions we've been going on this morning. We've got so much more happening throughout the day. So yeah, get that pen and paper down, write down what you want to go and see. But don't worry, we are recording all of the sessions. Now we are ready to move on with our next speaker for today. And I have a question for you. Have you ever wondered how to build a community-focused brand and business so strong that they become ideal clients, should I say, to sell to with ease? Maybe that's a question that you've been trying to figure out. Well, our next speaker will teach you how she's built and scaled an international impact-focused business, changing the lives of others while bringing in income through an engaged community. She is the founder of Master Your Move Abroad, where she teaches women how to find clarity, career and community they need to build a life in a new country, and is the senior manager of global DEI strategy at Power to Fly. Please welcome Sienna J. Brown.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Valentina, and I'm so happy to be here, and I'm really looking forward to diving into our topic today, which is going to be impact to income. So building a community-focused business, all right? So we are going to bring up the slides and get started, and I really just want to walk you through a little bit about who I am. So as Valentina shared, I am the founder of Match Your Move Abroad. And at Match Your Move Abroad, we teach women, specifically women of color, how to find the clarity, career, and the community that they need to build a life abroad on their own terms, okay? So I do a lot, and I want to walk you through it a little bit. In addition to that, I am the mentor at Sienna J. Brown, my personal brand, where I teach women how to gain the clarity, consistency, and confidence they need to reach their next chapter. And in addition to that, I am also the senior manager of global DEI strategy at Power to Fly, where our mission is to fast track economic growth by upskilling and connecting underrepresented talent to roles in highly visible sectors. But when it comes down to it, when I actually ask the question, who am I, right? Take all of the work aside, I am 100% authentically me. And my core mission is committed to empowering and elevating women, specifically women of color, in their personal and professional lives. And so when really thinking about my core statement as a founder and as a contributor to a variety of companies, that's really what's allowed for me to build and scale multiple businesses by focusing on community. And so we're going to talk about it today, but focusing on community, impact, and true connection, okay? So I want us to get started. Today, I'm going to be teaching you 3 steps to building a community-focused business based on the things that I've learned over the past 6 to 7 years. So the first thing that I want to start off with is being specific with who you're serving, okay? And when we think about being specific with who you're serving, that's really going to help us say, how can we actually provide maximum impact for who we're trying to serve? So if I were to ask you right now, can you tell me who you're serving? And I want you to think about that for a second, right? So not just demographics, or not just where they live or what age they are or what they search on Google, right? But actually asking yourself, do I know where my clients and my community actually want to be going? Do I know what their pain points are? Am I able to identify what problem are they currently facing, right? And so when we ask ourselves that, when we can actually identify and say, okay, what is the problem that they're currently facing, then that allows for us to come in and say, okay, how are we providing them with a life-changing transformation, right? And so when you think about that and you're actually able to say, okay, where are they now and what are they currently struggling with? And then how are we going to be able to provide them with a life-changing transformation? That's what will make people want to buy. That's what will make people say, okay, well, they're actually focused on providing me with impact, with value, with something that's going to change my life, whether that's big or small. And so when asking yourself this question, it's really important to stop trying to be everything for everyone. Because when you actually lean in and ask yourself, okay, well, who are the individuals in my community, right? And how am I showing up specifically for them? That allows for us to be crystal clear with who we serve and what we bring to the table. And so I want to use my business as an example. So before it was Match Your Move Abroad, the business was actually called Las Morenas de España. And our core focus was very specific in saying, how are we providing information, how are we providing value, and how are we providing community for Black women who are living in Spain? And I remember when we started, a lot of people asked us, like, that's so niche, whatever, that's so specific, right? That's something where is there actually going to be value? And that's when the importance of community really came in, right? Of being able to say there are other individuals who might feel like they're alone out there, who might feel like they're going through the motions or they're at it alone and they want to be connected to other individuals. And it started off with saying, like, how are we being very specific and not trying to be everything for everyone, but focusing on our mission, focusing on our lived experience that would really allow for us to show up and actually teach from experience as well as research. And then in addition to that, being able to say, like, we will focus on this until it's time to expand. And it was actually just this year, and I'll share the story a little bit more, but just this year, and we said, okay, we're actually ready to rebrand and not just focus on Spain, but focus on a bunch of different countries, okay? And so when we go back and ask ourselves, what is the transformation that you're providing for your community? I want you to think about point A, point B, and point C, okay? So this is something that I work with a lot of individuals on in saying point A is where they are now and getting very specific. So understanding where they are now in their life, where they need to bridge the gap the most, where are they actually saying, okay, these are my pain points, right? We want to be able to be like Tylenol, painkillers. Everyone is willing to pay whatever it is for Tylenol when they have a hangover or when their head hurts because it's something that they need versus just like taking daily vitamins, which is something that's nice to have. Okay. So when we ask ourselves where they are now, the next thing that we have to identify is where they want to be. And then I want you to think about, okay, we know where they are now. We know where they want to be. And so what we're going to be focusing on impact is saying, how are we going to help them get there? Okay, and so when you do that, it's very clear to be able to say, I know specifically who I'm serving or who we're serving as a company, and we're able to communicate that across the board, right? So when we say we teach women how to find the clarity, career, and community they need, we really mean it. So I want to give you an example from Nikki. So Nikki is one of our students, and something that she says is that MYMA is such a beautiful gift to so many women, and it's because it gives them the shape, the scopes, and the goals to do where or for whatever it is that you want to move, and a tribe of women to support you, to answer your questions, and to be there. And so at the end of the day, the impact moment is being able to say they now have the knowledge, they now have the clear steps, and they now have community to go through the journey with them, right? And so again, I want to go back to thinking about impact and income. People are willing to pay for a high price course or for a high price program because they know that they'll be surrounded by community, that they'll be able to be connected to a company where the founders, the people who are working at the company, have shared lived experience, okay? So we just covered with being specific with who you're serving, and now I want us to talk about actually taking the time to get to know them. And this is so important because when we think about it, a lot of the times it's saying, okay, well, we want to sell, we want to launch products, and we don't actually listen to what our community needs and what our community is telling us. Okay, so I want you to check in with yourself, and I want you to ask the question, like, are you focused on selling? Are you focused on serving? And the reason why I want you to ask you that is because we live in a time where there's a difference and it shows more than you realize, right? We live in a time where a lot of the times, like, word of mouth is one of the best ways to get new clients in the door. People actually feeling like you're talking to them, like you care about them, instead of just having impersonal Instagram ads, right? So actually asking ourselves, like, how are we taking time to get to know our community? And for those of you who might have businesses or have been running businesses for quite some time, something that's really important is to say, like, okay, you might have hosted focus groups or whatever when you were just starting out, but reminding yourself that your company, your business, your community as well should and most likely are constantly evolving, right? So how are you listening and then using that to strategically pivot to be able to grow even more? Okay, so I want to share with you 4 high-level steps of how can you take time to get to know your community. And the first one is engaging in conversation on social media, which seems so simple, but there's a difference when you're not just sharing or you're not just posting to market or to sell a new product, but you're actually engaging with the individuals that you have in front of you, right? And that was something that we used as a huge marketing method when we were first starting out. And we used a lot of community content, right? So not just sharing what our experiences or our stories, but actually highlighting other women in the community. This way, individuals who wanted to become part of the community know, okay, well, there are other women out there like me. And then also, as a business owner, it makes your job easier because you're cultivating this community while also streamlining work, okay? So engaging in conversations on social media is something that's huge. In addition to that, actually asking them questions and taking notes, right? And so you can do this research whether you're doing something as simple as putting together Instagram polls or seeing where people are at, but like something that we did as we were growing and that we continue to do is really focusing on email marketing, right? And using your email marketing strategy to actually provide value, to ask open-ended questions, and to actually hear in responses real stories from your clients and community to be able to step up and then actually be able to say, okay, we hear you, and now we're going to adapt to what you need, okay? And so as you're doing that, it's also so important to understand what their biggest pain points are, because again, we want to be Tylenol, not a vitamin, right? And so we really want to be able to also connect with them on what their pain points are, create products based on what that is. And I think that that's something that's so important. And so really reminding ourselves to build our businesses around their needs, okay? And so reminding yourself that as you evolve as a founder or a CEO or a leader in the company, in addition to how your community is changing as well, really focusing on like, how can I show up in the best possible way in all moments? So I want to share with you a few more impact moments, right? This is from the Thrive conference that we hosted back in, I want to say back in like 2015 or 16, right? And this conference we created listening on the community's needs. And so it was the first conference in Spain for expats living abroad. We brought in over 20 speakers from all over the world. We had 120 attendees, right? And so again, we were specific about who we were talking to, but then realizing that more individuals were interested, okay? So moving forward, so we had conferences, right, based on the needs. Then we realized that individuals wanted to connect on a deeper level, which is when we decided to implement retreats, okay? So in those retreats, again, when we're focusing on impact, they sold out almost always in less than 48 hours. Women flew into Spain from places all over the world and sharing a one-of-a-kind experience, okay? And then when it comes to adapting again, hearing and listening what they need, okay, so we found that instead of just women wanting to connect with people who are already living abroad, what had actually happened was that women wanted to learn how to make it happen. So we listened, we adapted, right? And that is when we really became, or we focused on becoming an educational platform, right? And so that's when we were able to create courses teaching women how to find work abroad. And we built the methodology off of years of experience and researching, and also we aligned it based on what the community needed and what the community asked for. And that's how we've been able to impact hundreds of women all over the world. So some quick impact moments, again, when thinking about impact and when thinking about community, we hear Renee, and she says, it's delightful hearing from everyone's journey. I've met women from all over the world from various ages and ages in their career, right? And so again, one for her, something that was huge is the fact that she's also going through this process with other women in the community, right? So again, it means that part of your products and part of the things that you're launching really use and highlight your community so that other individuals feel like they're not going through it alone, okay? So Sean, another impact moment, she was one of our students, and she said, this course and Sienna's guidance feels like being given a new pair of eyes. I've had to adjust the vision of what's possible for me, but it's lining up. Another impact moment, the workbooks, the tools, the series, and Sienna's life stories made this dream real, right? And so these are all women who we've adapted as a company to say, how can we show up with impact, and then realize that that will bring in income, and not being afraid to pivot based on what your community needs, right? And so I think that this is something that's so interesting, because when we decided to transition from our old brand to Master Your Move Abroad, we realized that society, the world was talking about it. And over the summer, we really saw an increase of people actually getting on the bandwagon of moving abroad, right? So we strategically decided to pivot based on our community needs and also based on where the world is at. And that allowed for us to get tons of press, in addition to the press that we normally get, but to be highlighted by publications like Vogue, right? Where the point is that they're sharing the story, not just of what the business is, but how that's tied to missions and values, right? And realizing that when we focus on what the community actually needs, we hear that the narratives that people are talking about is like, this entrepreneur is paving the way for other expats of color, right? So it leads through, okay, well, as a founder, as a CEO, part of our mission and values is showing up for other individuals and having that ripple effect. Okay, so we've covered quite a bit. So we've covered being specific with who you're serving. We've covered taking time to get to know them. And now I want to share with you high level how to share your story and stay authentic, especially because when we go back to it, people now are attracted to companies not just for what they do, but also for who's behind it. And in addition to that, really being able to know who they're talking to behind the scenes. Okay. So really quickly, before we go into the audience questions, I want to share just like 4 quick tips of what you can do to be able to share your story and stay authentic. Okay. So something that's so important is actually sharing all parts of your story and your journey, right? So oftentimes as business owners, we say, okay, well, we only want to show the highlights or the good things, but people actually crave getting to know, well, what did you have to go through? What did you have to overcome to get to where you are now? And so when you have speaking engagements or when you're able to kind of get on stage, and it's been interesting over the year how showing up authentically has evolved from giving TEDx talks to being highlighted by publications all over the world. One of the core values that we have at the company is like showing up authentically and sharing all parts of your story. Okay. The next thing is actually understanding that you're solving real problems and impacting lives. And I know that sometimes that might seem like, okay, well, are we actually making a change? We're here in our homes, going behind, working behind the scenes, but always reminding ourselves and not losing touch with our community to actually hear the impact that we're having on other individuals. And then I just want us to also remind ourselves of like building trust by being human. And I think that's something that's so huge is being able to also tune into your personal brand and realize that people will be attracted to your business because you're focused on impact, because it's aligned with your core mission. And when you share more parts of yourself, that brings in so many people to just be able to actually connect with you. And the last one is remember that people will be attracted to who you are and what you value. Okay. So we're getting ready to come into questions, but just to recap one more time, being specific about who you're serving, taking time to get to know them, and sharing your story and staying authentic. So let's definitely stay connected. I'm so excited to bring back Valentina and get into some of the Q&As, and we'd love to hear from you.
Thank you so much, Sienna. So many great tips and tricks in such a short space of time. Yeah. But we do have some questions. And if anyone else has any questions that you would like Sienna to answer, please drop them in the Q&A because that is where I'll be taking them from. So let's jump right into it. So Favor says, what are the best practices for building a community from your customers?
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to best practices outside of what we just shared in the presentation, something that I would say is being in constant conversation, right? And being in constant conversation is so important because it actually gives you a pulse of what's happening. And so let's say that you might even have someone on your team who's managing social media or community, like have weekly recaps of what are people talking about? What are some of the frequent questions that we're getting in? What are things or concepts that people aren't actually understanding yet? And then with that, adapt what you're providing for them to actually be able to provide value with things that are happening in real time. And then they feel excited and engaged because they're like, okay, well, this company, this brand, this community is actually listening to me.
Definitely. No, they're great tips. And I can tell you that's something that I've been doing personally with my own communities. And it really does help just get to know your future members, current members, and yeah, for them to get to know you too. All right, next question then is from Pixie. Did you start from a community transitioning to a business or was it simultaneous?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So I was like, when I say impact to income, I truly mean it because the first 2 years of running the community, I had never even conceptualized it being a business, right? It was just about providing value. It was about connecting women. It was about really being able to see the change, like on a very like low touch basis, but like as we were doing that, we realized like, oh, this is actually a thing and people want to learn from us. People want to be connected. And so we started off with small events, right? Small events. And then that evolved to the conferences and the retreats and then the courses. But it really did start off as a community first. And that also gave us time to get to know who we were talking to. So when it was time to launch products, we were always able to sell out in record time because we actually took the time to hear what they needed.
Yeah, and I bet that's a great feeling to sell out in record time and not
yeah. And then it also makes you feel, Valentina, sorry, really quickly, it makes you feel like, okay, well, it's worth it. Like doing things sustainably instead of trying to make 6 figures in 6 months, but actually taking your time and then seeing the exponential growth.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, a few more questions then. How much time did you spend taking time to get to know your community? That's from Hazel.
Yeah, absolutely. So how much time? I'm very big on time and energy management, right? But I would say when we were starting out, I never spent more than 2 hours a day on the business, but doing that consistently over time. And then when it comes to engaging with your community, block off, I don't know, 15 minutes in the morning and 15 minutes at night, right? To engage with people who are in the comments, to talk to people who might be in your inbox, to actively reach out to new individuals and really build a sense of community.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Thomas says, any advice for those of us without compelling or interesting personal stories, but who still want to build communities that provide this kind of impact?
Yeah, this is huge. First, I would say your story and your experience is absolutely enough. Like what you have to share is already it. And so don't feel like because you're not anyone that you might see in social media or running other communities, like we're all human and our story is what makes us unique, right? And so I really want to lean into that just because it is important. Like I used to not talk about different parts of my stories because I would feel like who actually cares? And those are the things that people are actually interested in knowing. But that being said, if you don't feel comfortable starting out, start sharing community stories, and then that will give you a good way to start showing up and then also sharing other stories in addition to sharing your own.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that is all that we've got time for with Q&A today. Thank you so much, Sienna. Please give her a virtual round of applause once again in the chat. And I'm sure you can connect with Sienna on all the different social platforms. She's very active on Instagram. I know that. And we'll be back in 5 minutes with our actual break time activities. Here on the main stage, we have got a life drawing class with Their Life. You can also join a mid-morning stretching session with Kate Moss, or you can join one of the networking tables as well. I will see you back here for life drawing. Have a great break, get some drinks, snacks, and we'll see you very soon.